daily leftist detox counselor, your fearless host, Brock Lawley.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Brock Lawley program. My name is Brock Lawley. I am your fearless host. This is the show we tackle the news headlines, sifting out the leftist alphabet soup, fake news, Democrat Party media complex lies, like the chaff that it is from the golden wheat of truth. I serve that truth up to your ADD reality television show. Marred, maligned, misinformation-filled minds on a silver platter of rhetorical deliciousness, like little morsels of tasty bonbons. That's what the show is in a nutshell. Let's jump into the stories, ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm always advocating for Judeo-Christian ideas. I wear my politics on my sleeve. I'm a conservative, all that, blah, blah, blah. But, you wouldn't know any of these facts that I'm about to tell you. And, of course, these are pretty much a mile wide, a mile long every day. But you wouldn't know any of this stuff based on the noise and what I would describe in this case as the secular extremist noise. It's not music. It's not coherent notes. It's just noise. It's like, have you ever seen these scenes in these like bad 70s sci-fi movies? Or the most modern example I can think of is in the TV show Lost, where that poor kid wanted to date the leader of the other's daughter, and they stuck this kid in like this propaganda room, and they have like, crazy flashing lights all over the place. They have insane, like, German Euro club music pounding in the background, overdubbed with, like, weird animal sounds and horrific screams of torture. And it's all just designed to, like, overflood the senses with so much chaos that the mind melts down and goes into, like, a happy place. This is how I describe today's secular extremist, social engineering, just barrage on people. So much nonsense, so much filth, so much, poison, base, snake oil salesman, up is down, down is up. I believe this to be true. And I think even a person who's seeking out any clarity of mind or any wisdom is constantly fighting just this noise. I hope I didn't lose you on that, but I think that's a good visual illustration. Well, the reason I tell you that is to set this up. Why do you think, I'm going to give you a whole host of options in your mind, Jeopardy-like options, but why do you think that Utah is the most successful state in the area of education? But by the way, since we're talking about this, it's a pretty darn successful state by way of fiscal politics, and it's a pretty darn successful state by way of crime. And, we can just literally go down the list of almost every social problem, and you won't find Utah's name on that list. Go down through the list of every fiscal calamity or issue that we're having in the United States of America. You won't find Utah on any of those lists either. No, it's consistently these hellholes that Democrats run top to bottom. Am I right? You know the ones that come to mind. California, New York, Chicago. You can check out the public schools in these so-called havens of utopic leftism. Always fail. Test scores are always miserable. Crime's always through the roof. All these social pandemics are always just off the charts. Is there a quinkydink here? Is there a coincidence to this? Don't look behind the screen. There's the great and powerful Oz. You never look, never ask these questions. And of course, the party of science or the party of statistics never wants you to actually see science or statistics. And in this way, Utah, astounding success. By the way, here's another little nugget of truth. Utah spends less per student than any other state in the United States of America, and gets excellent educational result for that investment. Why do you think that is? Is that just hocus pocus magic? No, it's because it's undergirded and foundationed in a moral system. Now, I am not a Mormon. I don't undermine the Mormons or mock the Mormons. That's a very trendy thing to do. I have very significant theological differences from the Mormon church, but the Mormons are a very moral people. of this, there is no arguing. I'm not saying every Mormon you've ever met is an angelic person. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's just true as a generalization. Now, do you think the fact that they still laud and adhere family values, that the average kid in the school district in some of these geographic areas still has a mom and a father, or yes, a mother and a father, a stable home, probably not nearly as much alcohol usage, probably not nearly as much drug usage. I mean, we can go down the list, right? And from that, you have less abuse, you have less instability, and of course, we know these are all things that children need to thrive educationally, so on and so forth. But you're a prude, Brock. How dare you say one lifestyle choice is better than another? How dare you say one ideological bent is better than the other? Hear me say this clearly. One is far better than the other. Far better. Not even in the same area, not area code. Not enough people are saying this. Elephant in the room. The reason some of these school districts are failing is because the families are failing. Socioeconomics are failing. They're not compartmentalized. Anyway, Bloomberg does an extensive study on this. Why does Utah succeed? Values. Values. It's not money. It's not money. It's not that they're dumping tons and tons of federal money. The leftist solution to everything, I'm rabbit trailing here. The leftist solution to everything is more money. Is that not true? Is that not true? You know, it's right off the top of my head. Global cooling, global warming, no. Global crisis, no. Climate crisis, climate change. What does that mean? Redistribution of wealth, more money. More money for elitists in Washington, D.C. Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, Hillary Care. What does it mean? Redistribution of wealth, more money from the federal government, allocated to the federal government, more power. Progressivism, leftism, socialism, Marxism, communism, liberalism, scratch, what's the next one? Who knows? Enlightens, whatever. What does it mean? Redistribution of wealth, more money, more funds, more money. It's always a solution. That's always, they rebrand the problem. None of the solutions are ever dealt with. It's just more leftism, more money. What I'm saying to you is it's values. And that some value systems are better than other value systems. And that the left, they lick their finger up in the quote-unquote progressive, which is really regressive, wins. And they're like, no, we know best. All these leave it to beaver advocators, all these misogynists, these homophobes. Well, we just need to shake free. Well, what you shake free from is students that have an educational future. What you shake free from is stable family units that raise kids that don't cut themselves or try to commit suicide at 12 or send pictures of their genitalia at 14 to random boys on the internet. No, these things matter. Talk to any superintendent worth their salt at any school district. The area I live in, I have weekly meetings with these people just to find out how I could better the community and get involved. And these people are overwhelmed with the fallout, the social consequences of the breakdown of what we would deem as values in this podcast. Values. And all you get is mockery from the left if you bring it up. They make fun of whatever. They call you old-fashioned, prudish. But I'm talking about results here, people. That's what I'm talking about. Test scores, jobs. In the case of Utah, they have a great economy, stability, neighborhood safety, crime rates, teenage pregnancy rates, abuse rates. Anyway, no, never ask these questions. Never ask these questions. Speaking of insanity, climate change now, ladies and gentlemen, did you know that it causes PTSD? Oh, yeah. According to the Washington Post, which, by the way, this is supposed to read like a serious piece, the mockery that the Washington Post has become. Anybody who reads it knows that. Looks like the scribblings of a madman in a padded room. Washington Post says, climate change is the reason for post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, what are we up to now, right? Terrorism, right? Jihad is climate change. I mean, literally every aspect of life now is climate change. You listen to NPR and they're serious. They say this stuff seriously. You got these Democratic senators out there. Do you realize that the reason your son crayoned on the wall at your house, and now you got to repaint it, resurface your wall? Climate change did that. I mean, everything, right? Every aspect of life is caused by climate change. These people are deranged. And of course, why does this frustrate me? We got a lot of friends. I have a lot of vet friends. I've went to war. Now, let me unequivocally say this. Climate change, which is another word of saying grow the federal government via the Democratic Party. Climate change has not caused post-traumatic stress disorder. Going to war and seeing people get mowed down like tall grass maybe had something to do with it. Traumatic experiences maybe had something to do with it. These people are just insane. And what do? They water down something real, which is the hallmark card of today's Democrats. Washington Post has that scribbling. More on how Obama administration pumped up the Russian hacking story from yet another person who's coming out. The intelligence info is supposedly to be disseminated among... By the way, all these changes right at the end of Barack Obama's administration. The thing that's hilarious about this story to me, first of all, I'm just going to say this. Everybody knows, that's intellectually honest, everybody knows this did happen. The Obama administration did use the federal government to spy on their political foes. That did happen. They did use that to saturate the deep state, which then debilitates and cuts the legs out of a new administration. It's unprecedented in its disrespect for democracy and the ridiculousness that it causes our democratic system. But who cares? Because leftism trumps all that stuff, right? First of all, everybody knows that happened. And what I find hilarious is the New York Times literally reported that months ago. Literally reported that. Now, of course, this was before they found out Donald Trump won the White House. And then the Democrats just have some powwow and they decide we're going to hit the Indian drum of Trump and Russia and, distract everything every day. But nonetheless, I love how the New York Times thinks they get away with reporting this verbatim, and they use words like wiretapping. I mean, I've read this. Now it's just like, oh yeah, we didn't do it. You see, what we realize is the latest email that we got in our inbox from the Democrat spin machine said, oh, it's not convenient to use those terms anymore. I mean, granted, we printed them, and they're on the internet with a simple Google search and a date, but no, we didn't do it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's actually where we are right now. And we're all just supposed to be like, okay. Why? Because every alphabet soup got the memo. Don't say anything about it. Don't substantiate it. Don't give it any credibility. I love how this stuff is just... It's fascinating to watch this all go down. Ladies and gentlemen, a 14-year-old girl gets raped in Virginia, or Maryland, rather. And it's a media blackout. She gets raped by 2 illegal immigrants. It's a media blackout. You mean to tell me that's not completely and totally collaborated? You mean to tell me that all of these news industry, alphabet soup, corporations, and ABC, NBC, CBS, NPR, PBS, you mean to tell me that they're all just not paying attention to it? Or could it be that it doesn't serve the Democrat Johnny-come-lately, and of course they change like shifting sand on the beach, talking points of the day? Which one do you think it is? TheHill.com has that piece. What they do want to hit is the investigation of Trump, the influence of they'll use these terms like the influence over our election. But then somebody has enough gall to ask them, what do you mean by that? Oh, well, we don't know, could be anything. What influence? I mean, was a vote changed? Well, we have no way of knowing without extensive information. Yes, but what accusation are you making? Are you making the accusation that some Russia operative changed the opinion of the American people? Oh, how do we know this? I mean, it could have happened. They just use these terms like impacted election, influenced election. And of course, when you scratch and sniff this nonsense, what you realize is Hillary Clinton, Podesta, the DNC, they got their emails hacked. And so people realized how horrible they were, how despicable they were, how duplicitous they were, how two-faced they were, how much racism they were emailing each other back and forth, how there was homophobic claims and ridiculous claims about blacks in their stinking emails. How they were colluding with major media figures in America. Now, because this stuff got out, this is deemed election tampering by the Democrats. See, that stuff's all supposed to be on the down low. That's how things are supposed to go in the United States of America. See, they own the universities, they own the media, so you get told what you get told. This whole dumping their emails, which is the truth of what they think, onto the internet, that to them is election tampering, because Democrats are going to win elections if you actually know what we're doing. If you actually know what we really think. You're supposed to just swallow the jagged pills of nonsense that we feed you. That's how the system's supposed to work. No. This is election tampering now. You follow this? Hilarious. Of course, the New York Times has that scribbling if you want to read about it. Betty DeVos, ladies and gentlemen, your education secretary, who I'm quickly falling in love with, calls for more school choice. More school choice, says the Democrats. Ghastly! Here are the areas in which the Democrats do support choice. They would like your middle school son or daughter to have a prophylactic cart that gets wheeled around from room to room. And a whole smorgasbord of choice, Maybe there'll be some sex toys there. After all, we shouldn't consider their innocence. We need choice. They should have choices. And if you mention abstinence, we're going to laugh you out of the room. When we see choice, we mean choices that we want. You should have choices to murder voiceless, innocent children. But if you want a choice in the day of the stinking internet as to how you would educate yourself, specifically in inner city schools that are so bad, you wouldn't go in there without packing heat. No, in this case, no choice. Choice is bad. Bad choice. And moreover, these guys are trying to sell you that this is bad for minorities. Minorities that graduate with a 7th grade reading level in these abysmal schools, if they even graduate. Yes, if I were a parent in those geographic hell zones, I would want a stinking choice. But no, why? Because the Democrats use teacher unions and public schools as propaganda mills and money laundering schemes into their coffers. And that is the truth. Also, DeVos says, more money in schools isn't the answer. Now, we've been over that in this podcast. The answer is values, values, values. And by the way, with a side dish of rejecting leftism. That's how you improve schools. New York Times is beside themselves. DeVos, how dare she? How dare she? By the way, just as a record, it's exactly what the public school needs. The public school system needs to be a dinosaur because it's awful. I'm not blaming school teachers. My wife's a school teacher. I'm blaming the public education system. I'm blaming politicians, and I'm blaming the corrupt Democrat Party who crawled in bed with unions and chose special interest over children decades ago. And I evidence you, public schools as the proof in the pudding of what I'm telling you. I'm disturbed by how often the Freedom Caucus is getting attacked. These are, think of these guys as the Tea Party. Yeah, they're the ones that the system. And when I say this, I don't mean just Democrats. I mean establishment Republicans, and even Trump, to my great dismay, is tweeting out defamatory stuff against the Freedom Caucus. Look, I didn't want Obamacare light either. Now, I'm back and forth on whether we should have passed this because at the end of the day, my politics, unlike a lot of people, are not really win-lose. I look at them as what helps people. Obamacare, for all the political pandering and the tug-of-war, and most of the time you don't even hear anybody talk about details. You just hear Democrats said Obamacare is good, so Obamacare is good. Republicans say Obamacare is bad. No, Obamacare actually spiked the premiums on millions of insurance policies. Millions, ladies and gentlemen. So when they talk about insured people, how good is having insurance when you have a $500 premium, or it costs you, $1,000 for your prescription drugs, or whatever other godly numbers are coming out? Well, you have insurance, though. The Democrats put you in the insured column. Which, by the way, with anybody with a stitch of common sense realizes, we spent $1 trillion on Obamacare. Do you think they could have actually bought people, wait for it, health care for that money? Do you think they could have found some poor people that needed health care and bought them, not insurance that basically shoves money into insurance company special interests, which I was told the Democrats are against, but billions of dollars was dumped into prop up insurance companies because, of course, this whole system doesn't work because that's not the way insurance works. But anyway, it was never intended to do that. It was intended to take over the health industry with the federal government. But all that to say, Obamacare is hurting people. So yes, I think there was stuff in Ryan's proposal that could have helped people. But it was Obamacare light. That's true. It was Obamacare light. It was weak cheese. And just for the record, if you want my opinion, the Republican Party should feel immense shame after having that much time and spent that much time opposing Obamacare, of course campaigning on it several elections now. And then rubber meets the road, and this is kind of the discombobulation idiocy that we experience. That's on them. On them. You already know the contempt I have for the establishment GOP, however. But yeah, the Freedom Caucus is putting the Republican Party at risk and political jeopardy and, putting the Trump administration. Well, man, I would like to think that the Trump administration will learn from this. Establishment rhino hacks, first of all, opposed you, Trump. I'm not saying that some of these Freedom Caucus members didn't, but you have no friend in McConnell or Ryan. They're hacks. They're rhino hacks. They care about establishment power. They don't care about revolutionizing Washington, D.C. In fact, that's the last thing they want. If I was friends with the president, I would caution him. Although, there is something to be said about the fact that if you're 100% a purist, we're going to have problems. We're going to have problems if there's no wiggle room at all on anything. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Rove and all the stereotypical rhino hacks are out there. Wall Street Journal has a bunch of pieces trashing the Freedom Caucus, which is just basically politicians with values and principles. They should just call them the "we actually mean what we say" caucus. And by the way, I do get a little bit upset that the Republican Party can't unify. The Democrats will unify around anything. Anything. You know what I mean? Let's pass a bill that rounds up any person that has ever spoken against the Democrat Party on the internet. All the votes. I mean, they're always unified. They always circle the wagons. It's always the Republicans that... Right now they have an immense opportunity to do some real good in Washington, D.C., and they can't unify. It's frustrating. And I'll tell you what it'll do. It'll send the Republican Party into the wasteland for the next 20 to 30 years. Because you could not have given them more of an opportunity. And if they fail, it's so on them. And yes, the media is despicable. And yes, they have if the Democrat Party farts, they'll turn it into an egalitarian Gandhi-like effort. The Democrats could do anything, and they have the media on their side. So yes, that's a big hurdle, but it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. Stop placating and do what needs to be done. A college student, ladies and gentlemen, in campus reform is dinged for using the word, wait for it, mankind. I'm not kidding you. It's not gender neutral. He's academically dinged for using the word mankind. I just want to remind you, leftism is a gaggle of insane lunatics. Anyway, don't say the word mankind. Anti-abortion, I mentioned this in my previous podcast, the anti-abortion, which is really just the life or the decent human video activist, faces felony charges in California for exposing Planned Parenthood's ISIS-like behavior in the trafficking of human body parts. Ladies and gentlemen, sadly, that's the news of the day. Be a people of fortitude, character, and abounding courage.
Democrats will regret the power grab